Ain't going nowhere. Shalom, everybody. What's up? Welcome back to the next episode of Reading with Shallow. What's up, baby? Part 3. We back at it, man. To continue rolling on the next sea of pages, on this sea of pages, man. The Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James is what we're going to get into tonight. Or early this Sabbath, man. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Hope everybody's good, man. Hope everybody's good, well rested, and ready to go. I'm up here. Felt like reading since I'm up. Get my ass up and read a little bit. Go ahead and do it since I'm captain of the ship. What we got going? Shit, man. Long day fishing. All ready for lead my little ball fish. Cat didn't took the bones. I left out there for him. I should have put my trail camera out there so I could see what came and took it. That'd have been good footage. Anyway, man, we about to pick back up in Mr. C.L.R. James's book, man, about Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution, man, to go in parallel or conjunction with the slave revolution in the Caribbean, 1789 to 1804, that we read, which was the 26th book, the 26 sea of pages that we didn't traverse. And now we're going to keep traversing in this one, the 27th sea of pages, man, 27th one, 27th. I'm assassinating them damn things, knocking them down, baby. Maybe I should get my sweater. Knocking these sea of pages down. We left off last time, man. It was moving pretty smoothly. And since it's the Sabbath today, man, I ain't about to do no heavy lifting today. No heavy lifting today. We're going to do some light work. Light work, I just want to get there and read. We're going to get there and read. We're going to do 25 things for sure. We're going to work our body, work our mind, and work our body. But we're not going to work our body that much today because it's the Sabbath. And we got to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. I'm going to read this one and I'll be back later on today to pick up with the Sabbath reading, where we're going to get into First Chronicles today. We're going to jump into First Chronicles today. But before we do that, we're going to keep up with Mr. C.L.R. James and see what Mr. C.L.R. James is talking about. We're going to continue to roll and dive into the book and see what treasures we can unearth. What can we expose? What truths can we expose? What hidden things can we bring to light? What worlds can we bring to an end? What plantations can we burn down like they did in Haiti or in San Domingo when they was fighting the French, British, and the Spaniards and the Dutch? Probably the Portuguese was down there too, in some of the islands and the islands of the West Indies. There was a lot going on. And so far, within the first chapter of Mr. James's book, he has been he has painted a very vivid picture so far of what certain things were going on within his island of Jamaica, as well as some of the other islands that are surrounding. But the main thing that they're surrounding is San Domingo and the shit that was going on with Toussaint Louverture. So we're gonna keep pushing in that, man. But before we do, man, shalom, everybody that's coming in, man. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell your people, Shalom out here reading shit, man. We doing shit. We trying to be better every day. That is the objective, to better ourselves one step at a time, one day at a time. Man, you have all that you need to succeed. All we got to do is succeed. And today's succession is going to be within reading or rowing, as I say. We're going to row. We're going to roll through the sea of pages, man. So come on in, all aboard, baby, all aboard. Wipe your feet. Take your shoes off when you come in your house. In my house, take your shoes off, man. I don't want that bullshit you bringing in. Be respectful. Whoever out there, man, say something in the chat so I can know the chat working, and we'll go from there. I need 25 things though. 25 things. 25 things. We're gonna work our body just lightly today. This is the Sabbath. Just lightly. Just lightly. We're not gonna do nothing heavy. Fuck was that? That didn't taste right. 25 things is all I'm asking you. 25 things, man. Oh man. 25 things so we can go ahead and get started. Let's do something, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you can't do these 12, there's something wrong. Get your fast up. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. It's a Sabbath, man. I ain't trying to do much. I'm not trying to do much. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to get the West Coast family. It's a Sabbath. I'm not trying to do much. Hey, 25 things, though. 25 little bitty somethings. Let's get strong in our mind. Let's get strong in our mind, man. That's the objective really tonight. Be strong in our mind. Because you can work that all the time. Sabbath or not, you can work your mind. You can work your mind. Oh, man. Well, anyway, let's get it, man. So here we are. Now let's work our mind since we have done a little something just to keep the program going. And since I was out there at the fishing hole yesterday, I feel bad not being able to read yesterday. I feel bad that I wasn't able to read and get off part 3. So let's get off part 3 tonight. Thank you. Let's get off on part 3. I made it. Appreciate it. Gotta continue my practice, my carving skills. All right. Part 3 of The Black Jacobins by Mr. C.L.R. James, Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution. We're reading this in parallel with the slave revolution in the Caribbean of 1789 to 1804. So we're going to keep going, man. We're going to keep going. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Shalom, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate y'all chiming in on the chat to let me know the chat is working. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So let's pick back up. We're going to roll for about an hour, man. I'm going to read for about an hour. So, get your mind right. Get your mind ready. I am sad. I'm sad because I didn't read. But I'm going to feel better when I'm done reading. Hey, get your mind right. Get your mind right and get your mind prepared, man. So we can read about the revolution. So hopefully you can have a revolution yourself, man. We left off in chapter 1. We're going to pick back up in chapter 1. We're going to try to finish off chapter 1 today. No. I hate it. But I do like to see somebody get punched in the face in the UFC. Oh, not the UFC, whatever. MMA. Anyway, I like to see them get punched in the face like they was getting punched in the face in the revolution. They was punching them people in the face. They was punching the French in the face. They was punching the British in the face. They was punching the Spaniards in the face. I like that. I like that type of shit. Punch them in the face. Shoot them. With the cannons and artillery. Let's go. Toussaint, the Black Jacobins, Toussaint Louverture and San Domingo Revolution by C.L.R. James. This is part 3. Welcome. Let's go. The difficulty was that though one could trap them like animals, transport them in pens, and work them alongside an ass or a horse, and beat both with the same stick, stable them and starve them, they remained, despite their black skins and curly hair, quite invincibly human beings, with the intelligence and resentments of human beings. To cow them into the necessary docility and acceptance necessitated, a regime of calculated brutality and terrorism, and it is this that explains the unusual spectacle of property owners, apparently careless of preserving their property. They had first to ensure their own safety. For the least fault, the slaves received the harshest punishments. And in 1685, the Negro Code authorizing whipping, and in 1702, one colonist, a marquis, thought any punishment which demanded more than 100 blows of the whip was serious enough to be handed over to the authorities. And later, the number was fixed at 39, then raised to 50. But the colonists paid no attention to these regulations, and slaves were not unfrequently whipped to death. The whip was not always an ordinary cane or woven cord, as the code demanded, and sometimes it was replaced by the rigorous thong of cowhide, or by the lines, local growths of reeds, simple and plain like whalebone. I done been whipped with old cowhide. I done been whipped with old cowhide before. My mama used to call that thing red pepper. Don't want to get hit with that red pepper. The slaves received the whip with more certainty and regularity than they received their food. It was incentive to work and the guardian of the discipline. But there was no ingenuity that fear or a deprived imagination could devise which was not employed to break their spirit and satisfy the lusts and resentment of their owners and guardians. Irons on the hands and feet, blocks of wood that the slaves had to drag behind them wherever they went, the tin plate masks designed to prevent the slaves eating the sugarcane, and the iron collar. Whipping was interrupted in order to pass a piece of hot wood on the buttocks of the victim. Salt, pepper, citron, cinders, aloes, and hot ashes were poured on the bleeding wounds, and mutilations were common. Limbs, ears, and sometimes the private parts, to deprive them of the pleasures which they could indulge in without expense. Their masters poured burning wax on their arms and hands and shoulders, and emptied the boiling cane sugar over their heads, burning them alive, roasted them on slow fires, and filled them with gunpowder and blew them up with a match. Ooh, these some dusty foots. See, these are the reasons why I think people are so scared. You know, when the pink people holler about, they scared that slave would come back and do to them what they did to them. This is why. These are look at the atrocities. Look at the atrocities, the brutality. Buried them up to the neck and smeared their heads with sugar that the flies might devour them, and fastened them near to the nest of ants or wasps, made them eat their excrement and drink their urine, and lick the saliva of other slaves. One colonist was known in moments of anger to throw himself on his slave and stick his teeth into their flesh. And were these tortures so well authenticated, habitual, or were there merely isolated incidents, the extravagances of a few half-crazed colonists? Impossible as it is to substantiate hundreds of cases, yet all the evidence shows that these bestial practices were normal features of slave life. The torture of the whip, for instance, had 1,000 refinements, but there were regular varieties that had special names, so common were they. When the hands and arms were tied to 4 posts on the ground, the slave was said to undergo the 4 posts. If the slave was tied to a ladder, it was the torture of the ladder. If he was suspended by 4 limbs, it was the hammock, and etc. The pregnant woman was not spared her 4 posts, and I think I've heard that before, the 4 posts. I think maybe it was in Django, maybe, I don't know. A hole was dug in the earth to accommodate the unborn child, and the torture of the collar was especially reserved for women, who were suspected of abortion, and the collar never left their necks until they had produced a child. The blowing up of a slave had its own name: to burn a little gunpowder in the arse of a nigger. Obviously, this was no freak, but a recognized practice. And after an exhaustive examination, the best that Devasserie can say is that there were good masters and there were bad, and his impression, but only an impression, is that the former were more numerous than the latter. There are and always will be some who, ashamed of the behavior of their ancestors, try to prove that slavery was not so bad after all, that its evils and its cruelty were the exaggerations of propagandists, and that the habitual lot of the slaves. Men will say and accept anything in order to foster national pride or soothe the troubling conscience. Undoubtedly, there were kind masters who did not indulge in these refinements of cruelty, and whose slaves merely suffered overwork, undernourishment, and the whip. Shit, the whip was bad enough, man. What is it, 39 at least, 50, and move on up to 100? Shit, let me whip your ass with 100 lashes. Man. But the slaves of San Domingo cannot replenish their numbers by reproduction. After that dreaded journey across the ocean, a woman was usually sterile for 2 years. And the life of San Domingo killed them all fast. And the planters deliberately worked them to death rather than wait for children to grow up. But the professional whitewashers are assisted by the writings of a few contemporary observers who describe senses of idyllic beauty. One of these is Val Blanc, whom we shall meet again, and whose testimony we will understand better when we know more of him. And in his memoirs, he shows us a plantation on which there were no prisoners, no prisons, no dungeons, no punishments to speak of. If the slaves were naked, the climate was such as not to render this an evil, and those who complained forgot the perfectly disgusting rags that were so often seen in France. The slaves were exempt from unhealthy, fatigued, dangerous work such as was performed by the workers in Europe, and they did not have to descend into the bowels of the earth nor dig deep pits. They did not construct subterranean galleries. They did not work in the factories where French workers breathed the deadly and infected air. They did not mount elevated roofs. They did not carry enormous burdens. The slaves had light work to do and more happy to do it. Val Blanc in San Domingo, so sympathetic to the sorrows of labor in France, had to fly from Paris in August of 1792 to escape the wrath of the French workers. He had to fly, huh? They was flying in 1792? Was they flying in 1792? That's what I want to know. I'm going to mark that. I want to question that. I'm going to question that. Did they fly? He had to fly from Paris in August 1792. Damn, where's my other phone? Question mark. I'm going to question mark that. Were they flying? I doubt it. When did the Wright brothers first? Malou, who was an official in the colonies and fellow recreationary of Van Blanc against all changes in the colonies, also sought to give some ideas of the privileges of slavery. And the first he notes is that the slave, on attaining his majority, begins to enjoy the pleasures of love, and his master has no interest in preventing the indulgence of his tastes. To such impertinent follies can the defense of property drive even an intelligent man, supposed in his time to be sympathetic towards the blacks. and the majority of the slaves accommodated themselves to this unceasing brutality by a profound fatalism and wooden stupidity before their masters. "Why do you ill-treat your mule in that way?" asked the colonist of the carter. "But when I do not work, I am beaten. When he does not work, I beat him. He is my Negro. One old Negro, having lost one of his ears and condemned to lose another, begged the governor to spare it, for that too was cut off. He would have nowhere to put his stump of cigarette." A slave sent by his master into his neighbor's garden to steal is caught and brought back to the man who had only a few minutes before dispatched him on the errand. The master orders him a punishment of 100 lashes, to which the slave submits without a murmur. When caught in error, they persisted in denial with the same fatalistic stupidity. A slave is accused of stealing a pigeon. He denies it. The pigeon is discovered hidden in his shirt. Well, look at that pigeon. It take my shirt for a nest. Through the shirt of another, a master can feel the potatoes which he denies he has stolen. They are not potatoes, he says. They are stones. He is undressed and the potatoes fall to the ground. Hey, master, the devil is wicked. Put stones and look, you find potatoes. On holidays, when not working on the private plots or dancing, they sat for hours in front of their huts, giving no sign of life. Wives and husbands, children and parents were separated at the will of the master, and a father and son would meet after many years and give no greeting or any sign of emotion, and many slaves could never be got to stir at all unless they were whipped. Suicide was common habit, and such was their disregard of life for life that they often killed themselves, not for personal reasons, but in order to spite their owner. And life was hard, and death, and they believed, meant not only release from, but a return to Africa. And those who wished to believe and to convince the world that the slaves were half human brutes, fit for nothing else but slavery, could find ample evidence for their faith, and in nothing so much as in the homicidal mania of these slaves. Poison was their method. A mistress would poison a rival to retain the valuable affections of her inconsistent owner, and a discarded mistress would poison master, wife, children, and slaves. A slave robbed of his wife by one of his masters would poison him. And this was one of the most frequent causes of poisoning. If a planter conceived a passion for a young slave, her mother would poison his wife with the idea of placing her daughter at the head of the household. And the slaves would poison the younger children of the master in order to ensure the plantation succeeding to one son. By this means, they prevented the plantation being broken up and gang dispersed. And on certain plantations, the slaves decimated their number by poison so as to keep the numbers of slaves small and prevent their masters embarking on larger schemes, which would increase the work. For this reason, a slave would poison his wife, another would poison his children, and a Negro nurse declared in court that for years she had poisoned every child that she brought into the world. Nurses employed in hospitals poisoned sick soldiers to rid themselves of unpleasant work. And the slaves would even poison the property of the master whom they loved. He was going away. They poisoned cows, horses, and mules, and the plantation was thrown into disorder. And the believed and the beloved master was compelled to remain. The most dreadful of all this cold-blooded murder was, however, the jaw sickness, a disease which attacked children only, and in the first few days of their existence. Their jaws were closed to such an extent that it was impossible to open them and to get anything down. And with the result that they died of hunger. It was not a natural disease and never attacked children delivered by white women. The Negro midwives alone could cause it, and it is believed that they performed some simple operation on the newly child, which resulted in the jaw sickness. Whatever the method, that disease caused the death of nearly 1/3 of the children born on the plantations. What was the intellectual level of these slaves? The planters, hating them, called them by every opprobrious, opprobrious, there we go. Opprobrious name. What is it? What does opprobrious mean? Opprobrious. OPPROBIOUS is probably something bad. Called them by whatever bad name. Opprobrious. Opprobrious. OPPROBIOUS. Opprobrious. Opprobrious. Let's see if it's in the dictionary. If this is your first time here, man, whatever words I come across that I don't know, I don't understand, I will look it up. I will take the time to look it up. For me, I need to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Opprobrious. APPRO. Appro. It's not in this one. I need my other phone. I might need the Terminator, man. Opprobrious. I got loyalty and royalty inside my DNA. Opprobrious. 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 Expressive of opprobrium. Deserving of opprobrium. What is opprobrium? OPPROBRIUM. Opprobrium. Something that brings disgrace, public disgrace, or ill fame that follows from conduct considered grossly wrong or vicious. Opprobrious. The planters, hating them, call them by everything that brings disgrace, by something that brings disgrace, by something that was grossly wrong type of name, but by every opprobrious name. Opprobrious. The Negro says a memoir published in 1789 are unjust, cruel, barbarous, half-human, treacherous, deceitful, thieves, drunkards, proud, lazy, unclean, shameless, jealous to fury, and cowards. It was by sentiments such as these that they strove to justify the abominable cruelties they practiced. And they took great pains that the Negro should remain the brute beast they wanted him to be. And the safety of the whites demands that we keep the Negroes in the most profound ignorance. Right. Too smart and they'll surpass you. I have reached a stage of believing firmly that one must treat the Negroes as one treats beasts. Such is the opinion of the governor of Martinique in the letter addressed to the minister, and such was the opinion of all colonists, except for the Jews, who spared no energy in making Israelites of their slaves. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Let me mark that. That's a good one right there. Why would that be the sentiment? Except for the Jews, who spared no energy in making Israelites of their slaves, and the majority of the colonists religiously kept all instruction, religious or otherwise, away from their slaves. Naturally, there were all types of men among them, ranging from native chieftains, as was the father of Toussaint Louverture, to men who had been slaves in their own country. The Creole Negro was more docile than the slave who had been born in Africa. Some said that he was more intelligent. Others doubted that there was much difference between the Creole slave though the Creole slave knew the language and was more familiar with his surroundings and his work. Yet those who took the trouble to observe them away from their masters and in their intercourse with each other did not fail to see that remarkable liveliness of intellect and the vivacity of spirit which so distinguished their descendants in the West Indies today. And Father de Tetri, who knew them well, noted that the secret pride and feeling of superiority to their masters, the difference between their behavior before their masters and when they were by themselves. The Wimpfen, an exceptionally observant and able traveler, was also astonished at this dual personality of the slaves. Man, this brings me back to the thought of when we was reading Mules to Men. And also on the real side, I believe it's on the real side when they were talking about it's Mules to Men when they were talking about the double talk and the duplicity, as it says, the duplicity of how the slaves would be amongst themselves and how the slaves would be with the masters. One has to hear with what warmth and what validity, and at the same time with what precision of ideas and accuracy of judgment that this creature, heavy and taciturn all day, not squatting before his fire, tells stories, talks, gesticulates, argues, passes opinions, approves or condemns both his master and everyone who surrounds him. It was this intelligence which refused to be crushed, these latent possibilities that frightened the colonists as it frightens the whites in Africa today. And no species of men has more intelligence, wrote Hilliard de Auditeur, a colonist in 1784, and had his book banned. But one does not need education or encouragement to cherish a dream of freedom. At their midnight celebrations of voodoo, their African cult, they danced and sang usually this favorite song. Eh, eh, bamba, eh, eh, Congo dufu. I don't know how that shit go. Congo mon deli, Congo tequila, and Congo li. Eh, eh, bamba, hu hu, Congo bafote, and Congo mandeli, Congo tequila, and Congo li. We swear to destroy the whites and all that they possess. Let us die rather than fail to keep this vow. And the colonists knew this song and tried to stamp it out, and the voodoo cult with which it was linked. In vain for over 200 years, the slaves sang it at their meetings. And as the Jews in Babylon sang of Zion and the Bantu today sing in secret the national anthem of Africa, all the slaves, however, did not undergo this regime. My bad. All the slaves, however, did not undergo this regime. There was a small privileged caste, the foremen of the gangs, coachmen, cooks, butlers, maids, nurses, female companions, and other house servants. These repaid their kind treatment and comparatively easy life with a strong attachment to their masters. Yeah, the house niggas. And have thus enabled Tory historians, rigorous professors and sentimentalists to present plantation slavery as a patriarchal relation between master and slave. And permeated with the vices of their masters and mistresses, these upper servants gave themselves airs and despised the slaves in the fields. Dressed in the cast-off silks and brocades, they gave balls in which, like trained monkeys, they danced minuets and quadrilles, and bowed and curtsied in the fashion of Versailles. But a few of these used those positions to cultivate themselves to gain a little education, to learn all they could. And the leaders of the revolution are usually those who have been able to profit by the cultural advantages of the system they are attacking. And the San Domingo Revolution was no exception to this rule. Christophe, afterwards Emperor of Haiti, was a slave, a waiter in a public hotel at Cap Francis, where he made use of the opportunities to gain a knowledge of men, and of the world. And Toussaint Louverture, also belonging to this small and privileged caste, his father, son of a petty chieftain in Africa, was captured in war, sold as a slave, and made the journey in the slave ship. He was bought by a colonist of some sensibility who, recognizing that this Negro was an unusual person, allowed him a certain liberty on the plantation and the use of 5 slaves to cultivate a plot of land. He became a Catholic, married a woman who was both beautiful and good, and Toussaint was the eldest of the 8 children. Near to the household lived an old Negro, Pierre Baptiste, remarkable for his integrity of character and a smattering of knowledge. And the Negroes spoke of a debased French known as Creole, which is probably some of the stuff that people may think I'm speaking when I'm speaking some of these French words. But Pierre knew French, also a little Latin, and a little geometry, which he had learned from a missionary. And Pierre Baptiste became Toussaint's godfather and taught his godson the rudiments of French. And using the services of the Catholic Church, he instructed him also on the rudiments of Latin. And Toussaint learned also to draw. And the young slaves had a care of the flocks and herds, and this was Toussaint's early occupation. But his father, like many other Africans, had some knowledge of medicinal plants and taught Toussaint what he knew. The elements of an education, his knowledge of herbs, his unusual intelligence, singled him out, and he was made coachman of his master. This brought him further means of comfort and self-education, and ultimately he was made steward of all of the livestock on the estate, a responsible post which was usually held by a white man. And if Toussaint's genius came from where genius comes, yet circumstances conspired to give him exceptional parents and friends and a kind master. And we're going to try to get to chapter 2. We got about 4 more pages. But the number of slaves who occupied positions with such opportunities was infinitely small in comparison with the hundreds of thousands who bore on their bent backs the whole structure of San Domingo society. All of them did not submit to it. Those whose boldness of spirit found slavery intolerable and refused to evade it by committing suicide would fly to the woods and mountains and form bands of free men, the Maroons. They fortified their fastnesses with palisades and ditches. Women followed them. They reproduced themselves, and for 100 years, before 1789, the Maroons were a source of danger to the colony. In 1720, 1,000 slaves fled to the mountains, and in 1751, there were at least 3,000 of them. Usually, they formed separate bands, but periodically they found a chief who was strong enough to unite the different sections. Many of these rebel leaders struck terror into the hearts of the colonists by their raids on the plantations and the strength and determination of the resistance they organized against attempts to exterminate them. The greatest of these chiefs was Mackendale. We read about him in the other book as well. He conceived the bold design of uniting all the Negroes and driving the whites out of the colony. He was a Negro from Guyana who had been a slave in the district of Limbe, later to become one of the greatest centers of the revolution. Mackendale was an orator, and in the opinion of the white contemporary, equal in elegance to the European orators of the day, and different only in his superior strength and vigor. He was fearless, and though one-handed from an accident, he had fortified a spirit which he knew how to preserve in the midst of the most cruel tortures. He claimed to predict the future, like Muhammad. Is that Muhammad? Like Muhammad, he had revelations. Yes, Muhammad. Like Muhammad, he had revelations. He persuaded his followers that he was immortal and exercised such a hold over them that they considered it an honor to serve him on their knees. And the handsomest women fought for the privilege of being admitted to his bed. Not only did his band raid and pillage plantations far and wide, but he himself ranged from plantation to plantation to make converts, stimulate his followers, and perfect his great plan for the destruction of white civilization from San Domingo. Go ahead, Mackendale, handle your business, baby. That boy was the man, Mackendale. An unrestricted mass feeling its way to revolution usually begins by terrorism, and Mackendale aimed at delivering his people by means of poison. And for 6 years, he built up his organization, he and his followers poisoning not only whites, but disobedient members of their own band. And then he arranged that on a particular day, the water of every house in the capital of the province was to be poisoned, and a general attack made on the whites while they were in the convulsions and anguish of death. He had lists of all members of his party in each slave gang, appointed captains, lieutenants, and other officers, arranged for bands of Negroes to leave the town and spread over the plains to massacre the whites. His temerity was the cause of his downfall, and he went one day to a plantation, got drunk, and was betrayed, and being captured was burnt alive. The Mackendale Rebellion never reached fruition, and it was not the only hint of an organized attempt to revolt during the 100 years preceding the French Revolution. The slaves seemed eternally resigned, though here and there a slave was manumitted or purchased his freedom from his owner, but from their masters came no talk of future emancipation. And the San Domingo colonists said that slavery was necessary, and from them that finished the argument. Legislation passed for the protection of the slaves remained on paper in face of the dictum that a man could do as he liked with his own. All laws, however just and humane they may be, in favor of Negroes will always be a violation of the rights of the property if they are not sponsored by the colonists. And all laws on property are just only if they are supported by the opinion of those who are interested in them as proprietors. This was still white opinion at the beginning of the French Revolution, and not only planters, but officials made it quite clear that whatever the penalties for the ill treatment of slaves, these could never be enforced, and the slaves might understand that they had rights, which would be fatal to the peace and well-being of the colony. That was why the colonists never hesitated at the mutilation, the torture, or the murder of a slave who had cost him thousands of francs. The Ivory Coast is a good mother was a colonial proverb, slaves could always be bought, and profits were always high. The Negro Code was enacted in 1685. A century after, in 1788, the Lejeune case laid bare the realities of slave law and slave justice in Saint Domingo. And Lejeune was a coffee planter in Plaisance. Oh, ain't that a bitch? Plaisance, huh? Man, that's a town out here. Plaisance. Plaisance. A coffee planter in Plaisance. I wonder if there's a Lejeune. I bet there's a Lejeune out here. Yeah. Man, there's a Lejeune. I know it's a Lejeune. A Lejeune in Plaisance. Plaisance, Louisiana. Lejeune was a coffee planter of Plaisance. Suspecting that the mortality among his Negroes was due to poison, he murdered 4 of them and attempted to extort confessions from 2 women by torture. He roasted their feet, legs, and elbows while alternately gagging them thoroughly, and then withdrawing the gag. He extorted nothing and threatened all his French-speaking slaves that he would kill them without mercy if they dared to denounce him. But Plaisance, in the thickly populated northern province, was always a center of the more advanced slaves, and 14 of them went to Le Cap and charged Lejeune before the law. The judges could do no less than accept the charges, and they appointed a commission which made an investigation at Lejeune's plantation and confirmed the testimony of the slaves. The commission actually found the 2 women barred and chained, with elbows and legs decomposing, but still alive, and one of them had her neck so lacerated by the iron collar that she could not swallow. Now, Lejeune insisted that they were guilty of the poisonings which for so long had ravaged his population, and gave in evidence a box taken in the woman's possession. This, he said, contained poison, but when the box was opened, it was found to contain nothing more than the ordinary tobacco and rat dung. Defense was impossible, and when the 2 women died, Lejeune disappeared just in time to escape arrest. The case was clear. At the preliminary hearing, the 14 Negroes repeated their accusations word for word, but 7 white witnesses testified in favor of Lejeune, and 2 of his stewards formally absolved him of all guilt. The planters of Plaisance petitioned the governor and the intendant and on behalf of Lejeune, and demanded that each of his slaves be given 50 lashes for having denounced him. Oh, boy, Dustyfoots deserve what they get. The Chamber of Agriculture of Le Cap asked that Lejeune should merely be banished from the colony. And come on, Mackendale, get them. 70 planters from the North made a similar petition, and the Philadelphian Circle, a center of San Domingo culture, was asked to make representations on Lejeune's behalf, and Lejeune's father asked for a writ of intervention against one of the official investigators whose evidence was impugned. To put it shortly, wrote the governor and the intendant to the minister, it seems that the safety of the colony depends on the acquittal of Lejeune. It did if the slaves were to be kept in their place, and the judges, after 1,000 delays, returned a negative verdict. The charges were declared null and void and the case dismissed, and the public prosecutor demanded an appeal before the Superior Council of Port-au-Prince, the official capital of the island, and all white San Domingo was up in arms. The intendant appointed the oldest member of the council to be the rapporteur, thinking that he could be depended upon to ensure justice. But in the day of the trial, fearing that he would not be able to secure a conviction, he absented himself, and the council once more acquitted Lejeune, and the home government could pass what laws it liked. And white San Domingo would not tolerate any interference with the methods by which they kept their slaves in order. This was a problem to be solved, and hope from the planters there was none. In France, liberalism was still an aspiration and a trusteeship. Its fig leaf was as yet unknown. But on the tide of humanitarianism rising on the Bourgeois revolt against feudalism, Diderot and the encyclopedias had attacked slavery and let the colonies be destroyed rather than be the cause of so much evil, said the encyclopedia. I wonder if that's where we get the name of this shit from. I wonder if that's where the encyclopedia comes from. I'm gonna have to look up that. What does encyclopedia mean? Do you know? Encyclopedia. Let's see if it's enough. Let's see if it's in there. What does encyclopedia mean? Encyclopedia. Encyclopedia. A book or series of books giving information on all subjects or on all aspects of one subject. Encyclopedic, encyclopedical. Someone who writes, edits, or contributes to an encyclopedia. Saying so generic. I think that's a generic definition, but that's what it means. But I wonder if that's where they get the name from. Let the colonies be destroyed rather than be the cause of so much evil, said the encyclopedia in its article on the slave trade. But such outbursts neither then nor now have carried weight, and wordy attacks against slavery drew sneers from observers which were not altogether underserved. The authors were compared to doctors who offered to be to a patient nothing more than invectives against the disease which consumed him. But among these literary opponents of slavery was one who, 9 years before the fall of Bastille, called boldly for a slave revolution with a passionate conviction that it was bound to come some day and relieve Africa and Africans. He was a priest, the Abbé Raynal, and he preached his revolutionary doctrine in the philosophical and political history of the establishments and commerce of the Europeans in the two Indies. It was a book famous in its time, and it came into the hands of the slaves most fitted to make use of it, Toussaint Louverture. Natural liberty is the right which nature has given to every one to dispose of himself according to his will. The slave, an instrument in the hands of wickedness, is below the dog which the Spaniard let loose against the American. These are memorable and eternal truths, the foundation of all morality, the basis of all government. Will they be contested? Yes. And the most famous passage, if self-interest alone prevails with nations and their masters, there is another power. Nature speaks in louder tones than philosophy and self-interest. Already are there established 2 colonies of fugitive Negroes, whom treaties and power protect from assault. Those lightnings announce the thunder. A courageous chief only is wanted. Where is he? The great man whom nature owes to her vexed, oppressed, and tormented children. Where is he? He will appear, doubt it not. He will come forth and raise the sacred standard of liberty. Man, maybe that's why the second coming, that's why they look for Christ everywhere. Oh, you can't be bad, man. You do people wrong, and somebody gonna rise up at some point. Somebody gonna be a Moses. Somebody gonna be a Malcolm X. Somebody gonna be a Christ at some point. Somebody, baby. Oh, don't get mad, pink people. Somebody. Yeah, you can keep looking because he coming. El Capitan. El Capitan. Man. Those lightings announce a thunder. A courageous chief only is wanted. Where is he, that great man whom nature owes to her vexed, oppressed, and tormented children? Where is he? He will appear, doubt it not. He will come forth and raise the sacred standard of liberty. This venerable signal will gather around him the companies of his misfortune, and more impetuous than the torrents, they will everywhere leave the indelible traces of their just resentment. Everywhere people will bless the name of the hero who shall have reestablished the rights of the human race, and everywhere will they raise trophies in his honor. Over and over again, Toussaint read this passage. A courageous chief only is wanted. Where is he? A courageous chief was wanted. It is the tragedy of mass movement that they need and can only too rarely find adequate leadership. But much else was wanted. Men make their own history. And the black Jacobins of San Domingo were to make history which would alter the fate of millions of men and shift the economic currents in three continents. But if they could seize opportunity, they could not create it. The slave trade and slavery were woven tight into the economics of the 18th century. And three forces of the proprietors of San Domingo, the French bourgeois, and the British bourgeois, throve on this devastation of a continent and on the brutal exploitations of millions. And as long as these maintained the equilibrium, the infernal traffic would go on, and for that matter would have gone on until the present day. But nothing, however profitable, goes on forever. From the very momentum of their own development, colonial planters, French and British bourgeois, were generating internal stresses and intensifying external rivalries, moving blindly to explosions and conflicts which would shatter the basis of their dominance and create a possibility of emancipation. Man, we're going to stop there. That is chapter 1. We'll come back with the next episode, with chapter 2, the owners. That was chapter 1 of the Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James, the sea of pages that has been laid before us that we are currently rowing and traversing, trying to find the treasures that lay deep, deep, deep in the book, deep in the seas, trying to see what can we learn and grow from, what can we take, what can we apply to our lives and make us better, help us to succeed, because we have all that we need to succeed. The same way Toussaint Louverture had all he needed to succeed, and so did so. And he took whatever things came along and used it to his advantage, just like the book that asks, where is he? A leader is all they need. A leader is all that is wanting. Where is he? Where is he? Oh man. They hate a nigga with a plan. Oh man, don't they eat a nigga with a plan? Oh man. So what's the word? Triggered. Some of that stuff triggered me. Get him, Mackendale. Get him. It's easy to see. It's easy to see why the fear lingers. It's easy to see why the fear lingers in the oppressor's heart. Why they think so many things will be done, because they remember the things that they did to us. They remember the things that they did to those that they had enslaved. Oh man. Oh man. And the things that they done, it replays in their mind over and over again. And all they can see is it being done to them. And oh, is it well deserved? It would be well deserved. Oh, yes. If the roles were reversed and all the copper-colored people of the earth came back and recolonized the earth and went to the places where the Europeans are, the French are, the British, the Spaniards, and they went to those places and they recolonized them. The same way that the British and the French took over the islands of Haiti, Jamaica, St. Martinique, and Guadeloupe, and Cuba, and all these other places, America, North and South, the same way that they went to these places and called it colonizing and civilizing. What if all the copper colored people went to those other places, the places where they came from, so say, and said, we're gonna recolonize y'all, because apparently y'all don't know what y'all don't know what civil. We're gonna re-civilize y'all, because apparently y'all don't know what being civilized is. I think it would be I think it would be just. I think it would be fitting. I think it would be a self-served payment, self-inflicted payment, I should say, self-inflicted payment. Hey, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Ain't that the golden rule? Ain't that the golden rule? You don't want bad things to happen to you. Don't do bad things to other people. Keep your hands to yourself. That's what we was always taught growing up. But maybe these things were taught to us because to help keep us docile, to help keep us in a kind of slave mentality, because these are the things that the slaves would teach their children, so that way they wouldn't get whipped with them 50 lashes or them 100 lashes. But we could be like the Maroons. I'd rather be a Maroon. If I had in the way I think, I could be a Maroon. I could be a pirate. Right now, I'm a pirate of the Sea of Pages. I am a pirate on the Sea of Pages because, man, I'm looking for the bounty, the booty, the reward, and the treasures that is within these Sea of Pages. And there's plenty. There's plenty. There's plenty to be exposed. There's plenty truth to be told. There are plenty lies to be held and dug up to see and unearthed, to see what is really what. What is really what? What has been, what will be, the things that seem to still be taking place and going on today. It's, when you read and see it visually, when the writer can give you a visual of the things that were done, and you could place it today, like it really has not changed. Like many things have not changed. The black laws, the code noir, it's still a lot of that still prevalent in a lot of places, especially the South, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. A lot of that stuff is still prevalent. Hey, and that's why they scared. They scared we gonna come for their bread. They scared. They scared we gonna tear their shit up. But it ain't their shit. It's just the shit they built over our shit. And ours wasn't shit. Theirs is some shit. Ours was live. Ours was stuff that they can't duplicate. You can't duplicate the great. And no matter the other thing that seems to baffle them is the fact that throughout all the things that the copper color people have gone through, the intelligence, the happiness, it's something in them. It is something in us that they just can't do away with. They can't get rid of it. They can't seem to find that thing that makes us that thing. And it's that royalty inside our DNA. Making the best of every moment. Making the best of and being content with what little you have. I think that shit is a superpower, man, for real. It is a superpower. Being adaptable when other people can't adapt. Don't get me wrong, it's not situations you want to adapt to. But, hey, the ability to do so, the ability to continue on, the ability to have, how the saying goes, you live to fight another day. Having that ability to live to fight another day, they are scared of the fight that's going to come. They are scared of the fights that have already come, and they don't want to see them come again. Why isn't this, I don't hear much, I mean, I just really don't hear much about the uprisings and the revolts. These are pivotal moments in what they consider American history. When talking about the different revolutions, whether it be the American Revolution or the French Revolution, it's these type of books and sentiments aren't talked about. Yeah, they don't want somebody to read that statement of where is he? Where is that leader that they're so in want of? Because each of us can be that. Each of us is that. So I say you have all you need to succeed. You have all you need to succeed. It's just we have to do so. We have to do so. Hey, that concludes part 3, man. That concludes part 3 of the reading, man. Part 3 of the reading. I appreciate everybody who stopped by, stayed, looked, commented, listened to the Black Jacobins by C.L.R. Likes, man, like, subscribe, share, out here reading it, man. I'm the captain of, man, SHILO, destroying worlds, and hopefully we can destroy worlds and plantations that's built up in your mind, man. Burn them down like Macandale did. Burn them plantations in your mind down like Toussaint Louverture did. Burn them down. Knock them off. Whatever it is that's going against, the righteousness that should be in your mind. Burn that shit down. Even the Israelites in the Bible had to fight, man. They had to fight. They had to fight. They had to fight and restore themselves. When the different kings came up in Judah, there were some who did wickedly in the sight of the Lord, and there were some who did righteous and right in the sight of the Lord. And the ones who did right in the sight of the Lord, they burned down all the bullshit and humbug from the past that was the evil. So, we're going to have to do the same thing in our minds, and it starts in your mind first. It starts with you. It starts with each of us. It starts with each of us. I can't make the change for you. You have to make the change for yourself, just like I have to make the change for me. And you can't make the change for me. I got to do it myself. I gotta want it, man. I gotta want it. Just like you gotta want it. I wanted to read, man. I woke up like 1, and I was just sitting there looking at scrolling through Facebook, YouTube, looking at the time. Improvement may start. Improvement reading. But I'll continue to do it. I'll read, man. I'll do it. I'll do my part. I'll do my revolution by at least I can do. Hey, orator. Orator definitely is speaks well, reads well, talks well. Let me see, what's an orator? Orator. What are the attributes of an orator? Orator. 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 Orator, a person who speaks in public. Orator. Oratical, given to using oratory. Oratory, the art of public speaking. Oratory. Even this reading is a part of public speaking. It's simply like public speaking. A lot of times, sometimes when I read these things, you know, I feel like I'm giving speeches, man. It feels like I'm just, because most of that shit is speeches that I'm reading. You know, I try to read it and such. Hey, but hey, it was some smooth reading today, baby. We was out here rowing good. We was rowing good. Had a couple of little hiccups here and there, but we was rowing good. Now, let's go ahead. It's Sabbath, though. Like I said, we worked our body, we worked our mind. Let's work our body again on the going out. 25 things, as I asked you, but it's like light work today. Light work. I ain't going to fuss about too much of nothing because it's a Sabbath. And we want to keep our work light on the Sabbath, man. Keep it light on the Sabbath. So 25 things. Let's get it. 25 things. I'm going to spread 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Touch my toes. 8, 9. Touch my heel. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Work them sides. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Oh, my neck. My neck, 25. 25 of them things. 25 of them things. We did good tonight, man. We did good tonight. We succeeded tonight. We excelled tonight. We pushed through. We persevered tonight. We did that thing. Like the Most High. He did that thing. Oh, man. Hey. Yeah, but, man, once again, man, appreciate everybody that stopped by, man. Appreciate everybody that stopped by. We're going to go ahead and close it out. I'll probably be up for a little while. But I'll be back later on. I'll be back later on today when the sun comes up and we'll get the Sabbath reading in. We'll jump into First Chronicles and see what First Chronicles is talking about. Is it the chronicles of the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel? We're going to see. We're going to see what it be. And we're going to see what we can and what we can't and what it is and what it ain't. Ooh, that's what it is, man. Hey, I'm out here, man. I'm out here. Shalom. I hope everybody has a wonderful one, man. Shalom, everybody. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. Shalom. Big low skip. Mojo.